So now we're ready to talk about the product rule. What happens when we take the derivative of a product, f of x times g of x? So in this video, we're going to go through the derivation of the rule, and then in the next video, we'll show examples of how to use this. So, going back to the definition of a limit, definition of the first derivative, limit as h goes to 0 of f of x plus h times g of x plus h minus f of x times g of x all over h. Quite a mess. Well, I'm going to use this old math trick. This old math trick is adding and subtracting the same thing. And of course, you're always allowed to add and subtract the same thing because that doesn't really change the value. And so I'm going to be very strategic here. What I'm going to do is I am going to have here, first I'm going to subtract f of x and g of x plus h. And then I'm going to add that exact thing, f of x, g of x plus h. And then of course here I have the f of x minus f of x, g of x. So why am I going to add and subtract that? Well, it turns out if I do that, I can be very clever and divide this into two separate fractions. So we have f of x plus h, g of x plus h, minus f of x, g of x plus h. That piece over h. And then separately, I'm just going to have a whole other fraction, f of x, g of x plus h, minus f of x, g of x, all over h. Now in the first fraction, I can do a little factoring out. In fact, I can factor out a g of x plus h. And when I do that, what I'm left with is an awfully familiar looking expression. What I'm left with is f of x plus h minus f of x over h. And that whole thing is times g of x plus h. A little sloppy there, sorry about that. In the other one, I can factor out an f of x, and I'm left with a very familiar expression with g here, g of x plus h minus g over h. And of course, this first one just becomes the derivative, and this one also becomes a derivative. G of x plus h, as h goes to 0, that just becomes g of x. And then f of x, of course, stays f of x. So what we get is the derivative of f of x times g of x plus f of x times the derivative of g of x. And this is the product rule. Sometimes it's written in terms of u and v. So derivative of u times v is uv prime plus u prime v. That's another way to write it, perfectly acceptable. And in the next video, we will show examples of this.